Welcome to Comp Chronicles, and this presentation is the first time, so nobody's seen this ever. Maybe not even me, because my original one got destroyed. So this is a recreation from, it's actually better though than it was. So you're gonna see the improved versions. Everybody feeling good? Did you have a good lunch? You having a good time? Yeah? Pretty cool town, Kansas City. Who knew? It's like they kept it a secret all this time. There's a Lululemon like right across the river, which I didn't know was even a clothing store until my daughter got sponsored by them and I started getting stuff that said Lululemon. Those yoga pants are tight though. I don't know if I should be wearing those. All right, enough about me. Let's get started. So we're going to talk about CEO compensation, a tough topic. Yes, very tough topic. When I was selected to do this, I was wondering if anybody else would want to do it because I know how tough it is, because this is one of the first challenges that I faced at the financial institution that I worked at. Not an easy thing to traverse, not an easy thing to understand. But one thing is for sure, did everybody attend Flint's session? That's pretty. Anybody else going to Buc-ee's after this? I am going to Buc-ee's, not for the sandwich, but for the third shift job, making $500,000 or whatever it was, or maybe that was Walmart. I don't know.
I'll just say, we're getting one in Amarillo that's opening in December, and we are concerned.
Yeah.
Because of the pay difference.
Yeah.
We have one opening near us too.
Yeah.
In Bernie.
Oh,
Bernie's opening
so really are
We have a
concerned.
branch in Bernie.
My only complaint about Buc-ee's is that my wife will make us pull over, even if we just got gas and used the restroom somewhere else. We're going to Buc-ee's and get some nuggets.
You don't need it.
No, that's right. But I do want the Buc-ee's swimsuit. I think that's awful nice. That's a pretty nice deal they got going there. But a friend of mine left the organization I was with before to go work at Buc-ee's, and he's making about twice what he was making. However, they don't ever close. Good thing about banks and credit unions, we do tend to lock the doors, and we don't work nights, holidays, weekends. They're working while we're playing, and there's a value there. So that's why they have to pay the big dollars, I guess. But these are some of the things that we're seeing happening. Can we put tape over this part? No, it's okay. I mean, I just feel like either my eggs are going to be done or I need to start running around the room. Mergers and acquisitions. Anybody going through mergers and acquisitions right now? Yeah, a lot. Several of our clients have this year, either acquired or merged. We've got some doing some very interesting things. Talent landscape. I don't think we need to probably beat that drum anymore. After the last presentation, I'm like, man, we're in trouble. Executive bench strength, and I'll do a little bit deeper dive in that here in a moment. Controlling cost amid a liquidity challenged environment. We having any challenges there with liquidity out there maybe? Last year was tough, wasn't it? 2023 for a lot of places. Commercial lending looking pretty good though for a lot of places. A lot of places shut down during the pandemic, and a lot of new places have opened up, so there's a lot of new need, fresh need, a lot of opportunity out there, but what does that do to your commercial lenders, credit analysts? There's a huge demand, right? So a lot going on. And just knowing how to get through all of this is kind of a big deal. Was anybody around in here working at a financial institution 2008 to 2012? Good times. Yeah, did you get the t-shirt? Yeah, that was awesome. Let's do it again. Never. Never. It was ugly. It was like you were falling down for days and days, like you just could never get back up. We have a bit of an issue with, you saw the labor force participation rate? That's encouraging. Nobody wants to work. What's going on? Did I not get a memo? Like you can not work? I didn't know that was even an option on the table. Yeah, I'm not opposed. My dad's got a pretty sweet place. Yeah, he said I could live in a tent out there, but that's about it. Unemployment rate keeps changing. Big problem after COVID. A lot of people said, you know what, this work thing, probably don't need to do it as much as I thought. A lot of people, I lost a lot of friends, lost some family members. It was it's been a tough time. And I don't even think it's over yet. Like I still think we're seeing some of the consequences from it. So a lot more people are retiring. And of that number, even though that number may not seem like a huge number, I mean, it's 2.2 million, that's a big number. But who do you think, and I said this joke yesterday, so some of you have already heard it. Who do you think's retiring? Is it me and the tellers, or is it the CEOs and the CFOs? Me and the tellers? Dun-dun-dun. That are not retiring. Okay, gotcha. Okay. I'll be here all night. So it's the people that are good financial planners. It's the people that have a targeted date to leave. That are very good at managing their expenses and don't buy the newest Apple Watch. So, all right, 0 for 2. Okay, so here we go. Percent of you, this is just kind of confirming what we're seeing. It's interesting, during the Great Recession, more people are staying in. However, some people are coming back, right? Inflation's kind of helped that out. When your grocery bill goes up $11,000, suddenly your fixed income is a little bit less fixed income, right? So, interesting times. CEOs are leaving their jobs at a record-breaking clip. This is all CEOs. This isn't just banking and credit union CEOs. This is all CEOs. But that's an important stat. Look at that. That's incredible. What's going on? What's happening? Well, here's what's happening. More retiring. But this is cool. So let's take this number. I always look at number 2 and number 3 because the Captain Obvious, number 1, we get it. Retired. They're not here. Other. Who did this survey? Could you not think of enough things for them to write other before they checked other? But I would like to say that these are going to be answered on the next slide, but bad performance. That's interesting. Bad performance. And then legal new opportunities. You would think new opportunities would be, but interesting. Any remote CEOs full-time? I didn't think so. So that's an interesting, just put that in the memory block there. And I know everybody can read this because you all have bionic eyes. If you need to move up closer, and you will get a copy of this, but I'll go over it. When CEOs come in, they have a pretty heavy task. There's an existing business typically, and sometimes they come in and it's hitting all cylinders, and they don't have to do a lot of change, but they still need to do a lot of change, right? Because it's a transformation of a culture, their way, their rudder. They're going to be steering the organization. But some of you, anybody had new CEOs come in? Yeah, we've all, well, a percentage of us have. If you haven't, maybe that's the question I should ask. Yeah, I wasn't going to say anything. Sometimes when people answer, I'm like, next question, bounce quick. Anybody not have a new CEO come in? Maybe that's a better question. Yeah? Oh, I was like, what is this in my pocket? You put a mic in there. I was like, I got some special treat in here. It was the microphone. So if you haven't, I can confirm that this is the playbook, right? This is the coach's playbook, the new CEO's playbook. Typically, a management reshuffle is in order. And it's not because everybody's doing terribly. It's just because they have a new direction. We need to focus on this type of lending, derivatives, whatever it is. Merger acquisition, looking at growth opportunities. We can go take those commercial lenders, or we could acquire that bank. And maybe that's a poor example. Cost reduction strategies. A lot of times when leaders are there for a while, there may be some things that are built in that could be replaced or done differently, right? So looking at cost reduction strategy, new business product launch, expansion opportunities. Anybody opening new branches? See, it's still a thing. It's probably half the people in the room that are, so that's interesting. And then others are running in the other direction. Organizational redesign. Product closure. We did some consolidation. When a new CEO came in at the financial institution I was at, immediately that was on the table. It was like, we need to shutter these 2 branches, but we need to open an LPO here and 2 other branches in this other area because those are some fast growing. So again, new strategy, but the people on those 2 branches weren't super jacked about. They're like, what? Well, we were doing great. Strategic review, geographic contraction, and that part of that consolidation. So what are the differences? Why is there white and red? Well, the companies that are performing well, so I talked about that. There may be a new CEO that gets to walk in and wins the lottery. Nothing really needs to change. We're really performing well. So the white line is the companies performing well, but you can see companies performing poorly, that management shuffle, but it's not a huge difference. It's only 6%. So it's almost a guarantee 3 out of 4 times it's going to happen, right? So this is a very interesting slide to me, because to me this feeds the conversation about CEO compensation. Any of these things on here easy to do? Has anybody done these solo by themselves? Anybody been a CEO or is a CEO? We've got a couple few in here. Run their own business, same thing, yeah? So it's hard when we haven't been there and worn those shoes. It's hard to even think about the souls that we're accountable for, right? The CEO doing well is paramount to the lives that are employed there, right? We need to have a successful CEO. When they don't do too well, bad things can happen. So there's a lot of responsibility that rests on their shoulders, and these are some of the things that have to happen pretty soon. And this says within the first 2 years to the first power. It's these banks and credit unions. This is what makes America great. You're meeting people where they're at. You're investing in them, they're investing in you. And that's what's got to continue to happen. So folding shouldn't be an option, but we're seeing a lot of that because people don't have a plan. To have a plan, we've got to have a clear comp philosophy, a solid foundation with a clear philosophy. And what is that most of the time? Does anybody want to share their comp philosophy? I understand we just had that legal review. I get it. Typically, it would be competitive to market. Now, when would it not be competitive to market? Some folks say, well, we pay the top of market. I got to meet some folks at a place, and they said, look, our board philosophy is to pay the top of the range. We don't want this person to ever leave, ever. And we understand that this is based on a specific data cut, but our plan is to be in this other specific data cut, and we don't want somebody picking this person off before we get there. So we're going to pay at the top of the range, and that's their philosophy, because they know the costs associated with finding new talent. Like, we went through 3 different recruiters, spent probably as much as we pay that CEO in a year trying to do so, finally found somebody, that person left, we had to do it again. Now we've got somebody we like, and we're going to invest in this person for the long haul. So that's another philosophy. So while market competitive may be the majority philosophy, there are others that go higher. Now, are there that go lower? Yeah, we already talked about that. There's some industries that, the mantra is this is kind of a mission field. These are teachers, and my wife's a teacher, and she talks a lot about pay pretty much every day. And I think she knows it's because of what I do. She's like, can't you fix this? I mean, isn't that your job? I'm like, I don't really work with teachers. Well, you work with the teachers credit union. I understand, but they don't determine your pay. That's the state. Well, can you talk to the governor? I don't really think he knows me. I'm going to put it out there. So, I'll do what I can. So you have to think about that, though. There are organizations that they're looking for more mission-minded folks, and maybe that's the approach, but it's not the same job, right? So teaching a class of kindergartners or managing the people that teach the class of kindergartners is not the same as someone that's doing a complex commercial loan, a mortgage loan, or trying to get a workout loan for somebody that just got laid off, that you're going to change their life forever by helping, right? These are long-term solutions. You're not doing what I was doing, which is making sure people eat their cornbread biscuits and dinner before they leave, which is a great mission, by the way. But it's a different ending, right? So we have to think about what our philosophy is. Without that guiding principle, everything's arbitrary. There's inconsistencies. There's bias. There's a lot of problems. Tied to asset and geographical wage differential, moving to midpoint with performance is also typical. But how are we measuring performance? We have to think about that too. Anybody warm? All right. Maybe standing too close to this timer. What's that? Can you not hear me back there? I'm sorry. Okay. Is that any better? Yes. All right. So tying it to asset size and geographical wage differential by performance is critical, but what is performance, right? So we have to define that. Is it the same thing every year? Should it be different every year? That's a big question. We have some clients that change that every year. We have some that say, these are the sustainable statistics. These are the sustainable numbers. These are the right tranches. If we hit these numbers, we're going to be fine. So they come up with 5 or 6 or 7 type objectives that they can define performance to move them to midpoint. When should we tell them about this? When, at what point of the interview, or are we telling them after? So those are some interesting thoughts too. And some folks I work with, would say, well, we want to make sure we know what we got first before we're transparent. We're going to craft it after. Well, that sounds a little bit weird, but it happens. It happens. Transparency breeds trust. Communicating openly about compensation practices fosters understanding and minimizes speculation. And that goes true for not only the CEO, but also that executive team. All right, everybody get your binoculars out. I've got some really small font for you to look at. I was looking for a smaller font, but this is it. This is as small as it goes. I was like, can I fit more on this slide? Because when has PowerPoint been this fun? So if you have BalancedComp right now, you'll be able to get a statement like this. You'll be able to get this type of information where you can get a total comp statement. So what if, when you're conducting the interview, maybe you're not doing this, maybe your firm is doing this for you. So if you had this type of information and you could share this, I think that's a very transparent way to communicate. For the last X number of years, our CEOs averaged this. We've offered, and maybe it's just percentages, or maybe it's just we are paying at market, above market. Here's where we're at. Here's our plan for you. Because when you're switching things after things are going, that can be more challenging. Is it better over here? I've got Jordan over here, so he knows a little bit about these sound things. All right. So let's what's that? I've only got 35 minutes, 14 seconds. So here's a question. And what was on this prior slide, you'll get a copy of it, but these are all the things with market incentives totals. Knowing what this is, having a partner that can get this information to you is a big part of the deal. And then being transparent in that conversation as you're talking to folks, or if you already have somebody and you establish your comp philosophy, being able to walk with this each time can give you a lot better understanding and give your CEO a lot better understanding of what's going on. All right, so this fascinated me. I think I might have seen it. I don't have TikTok, so it was one of the other social media programs, but I thought this was pretty interesting because I went around the room and I asked people this, and I was a little surprised because I thought everybody would do what I would do. So imagine two companies. Company A, it says option A. Company A, you currently are working at Buc-ee's and your yearly income is $50,000, but everybody else is directing traffic, earning $25,000. Prices are equal for either situation, okay? So houses are still the same price, you're in the same location, everything's equal. Option B, you're working at Walmart, your current yearly income is $100,000, others earn $200,000. Which would you choose? You don't have to answer. I see somebody spelling it out. It's the first word in one of our clients' names of their credit union. So, believe it or not, what other people earn has nothing to do with what you can spend your money on. So, even if someone else is earning $200,000, you're still earning $100,000, which is twice as much as the 50. But, much to my surprise, and maybe yours, because everybody here seems to be a little bit smarter than the group of people that maybe I was with that day. Hopefully you weren't in that group when I was asking this question. Jordan's looking at, wait, I think I was there. I'm just kidding, you weren't there, were you? All right. If you think about the two options, B makes sense, right? You're making 100. Anybody thinking A though? I mean, I'm willing to learn because maybe you know something, like there's a tax loophole that I don't know about. There probably is. 50% people chose A. Why do you think that is?
Because Buc-ee's is more fun.
That's it. And this concludes our presentation. Thanks, Jack. The whole moral of the story is work at Buc-ee's today. Third shift has openings. 50% of participants chose A, probably because a little pride. So often that is the hurdle when we're talking about CEO income. We're talking about CEO pay. Not always, but it can be if we're not careful. And I think this validates a little bit of that. And again, I said my wife's a teacher. She's always talking about unrelated jobs. Did you know that that person that does this and this and that makes $10,000? And I have a master's degree and 20 years of experience. Yeah, that's supply and demand. I know in kindergarten they're probably not doing that supply and demand yet, but if you were teaching it, that'd be one of the classes that you'd probably have, and then I have to dodge that shoe. It's like after I do that, I'm like, whoa, didn't see that one coming. That was a heel. All right, so you have to think about it from creating thoughtful variable comp structures. But before I go there, I've found in my travels over the past 11 years, plus the place that I was at, most places have variable comp plans for their CEOs. Anybody that doesn't have a variable comp plan, you don't have. So, okay, I mean, there was nobody else that raised their hand, but
That's why I'm here.
that's right. And I'm glad you are. I'm glad you are. Sometimes that's a contractual agreement. Other times it's market-based, and that does change by asset size. So as you get large, and it's different banks and credit unions. So that's interesting. So you have to build this with those things in mind. But what do you want it to be? Because sometimes I'll go to a place and I'll meet with the board, I'll meet with the CEO, and they're like, look, here's what we're offering the CEO. I'm like, that is better than market. That's why we're capping this maximum potential here. Okay, is everybody on board? That's the way we're going. And then the person leaves. Like, we're gonna not do that again because these other things that we have aren't as motivating as we thought, or it works for them. So you got to figure out what works for you, but understand, if you're capping it at say 10% or 15% and the market's paying 27 or 30%, that's a pretty big amount of money, and they're getting that now and not in 30 years when they're not sure that they'll be here or have any value with that, right? So those are interesting things to consider. Composition of board and personal pay comparisons can influence, and I think we touched on this with the little survey, but we have to get rid of the projected bias with the apples to apples comparison. And that's tough because we all have that. I came from an organization that, again, 65,000 employees. I managed 900 employees. I got stock options. I got a pretty nice pay package. So when I came to the financial institution, I looked at the pay and I was like, that does need to change, but I didn't fully understand it. So sometimes it's just an educational process and it takes a little bit of time. Because the for-profit sector pays their board members quite nicely too. So that was another thing to consider too. And so I was like, well, wait a minute, our people on the board were making pretty good money. So maybe that's something that kind of sets the table a little bit differently when we're talking about CEO compensation. So in walking through this process, we've got to eliminate bias, we've got to be transparent, we've got to have a stated comp philosophy, we've got to put a structure together, we've got to think about what we want to do with variable compensation. Do we want to offer variable compensation? Maybe we don't. What if you paid 5% higher than the top of the range and just didn't have variable metrics because you thought that some of the motivational aspects of it were not consistent with your culture? Is that a possibility? Is anybody's culture counter incentives, Ray? Oh, I'm sorry, Ray's name just came out.
Not that I know of.
Okay. There may be some banks in here that don't really pay much in incentives. There may be some that pay a lot. We actually wanted to outpace the market in incentives because when you offer higher base pay, can you just go, hey, Joe, we're going to take some of that back because I think we're paying you too much. We went a little bit too far. Joe's going to leave. So incentives, a little different based on quality of work, right? Outputs. But the end game on that can also lead to problems as well. You can have people that'll burn everything down to get to that number. Some of you know who I'm talking about. Yeah, and that's why we have a lot of the regulations that we have now, because we had to go through that with everybody gets a loan in 2008, right? And the years before. So let's say we get through all of that, we do all of those things, we move all of those mountains, and now we want to measure performance. So we have to think about the CEO review process because we want to pay for performance, right? Does anybody not want to pay for performance? You want to just pay regardless. It's not a strange question because some would say tenure is what we value, whether it's stated or a de facto policy. And a lot of us that are in credit union world that have a seg that was a government, firefighters, police, teachers, religious, and you can go on and on. That's kind of how they do that. They have a step and grade system. I know when I worked for the Army and Air Force Exchange, if you were there, you got a step increase. And you could, if you worked at a bigger location, you could get a grade increase. So, it was kind of like a military rank. What are you? I'm a UA 6, step 3. Don't look that up. It's not a lot of money. And I didn't stay there that long, maybe a couple years. So build the plan, come up with those objectives. Who's involved in that process? CEO, for sure. CEO should be involved. When you do employee goals, do you do them or is the employee involved in those? A little bit of give and take there. Should they be? When you think about those compensable factors and some of you have teller 1, 2s, and 3s or universal agents, what if they design their own performance review? What if Joe said, showing up to work and having me there is worth a lot? And then Sue says, if I hit this metric, recommend these products and services and do this, are they the same level? But what if we're paying them the same level? So that's interesting, isn't it? So when you think about your CEO should definitely be plugged into that process. They're the strategy driver. Everything kind of hinges on that decision-making process, right? So having them involved, informing, educating the board on why those are important. Here's what I see. We're going to have pressure on income. We've got rates in a declining posture. We've got this and this and that happening. So we're going to look at these types of investments. We're going to go after this type of talent. We're going to expand our digital channel, whatever it is, right? Those have all got to be strategic plans. And we're building this plan, and let's assume it's a calendar year. In December, we're doing this. The board also needs to be surveyed, maybe. I don't know. Does anybody think otherwise? It's a good idea to find out what the board thinks about the leadership and the direction, the development, overall strategy, sometimes rating of the credit union or the bank, right? How it's performing. So surveying the board can also be part of the plan. The board's a part of that process. What questions are meaningful to you to be asked for the CEO's review? What percentage should that be weighed? Should it be the majority? Should it be half? Should it be the minority? A lot of folks would say the financials. Go ahead, Virginia. Hold on, I can't hear you. Typically, good question, by the way. 30 to 35% would be most common for the board survey. I've seen it as high as 50. Yeah. I would want mine to be 95%, 5% on financials. That's why I'm not doing the job. So the board determines if there are also projects that should be assessed. Why is that? Well, what if you're the CEO and you say we're going to expand our digital presence and we're going to deploy these types of technologies? And because of that, we're going to grow this much. And because we're going to grow this much, we're going to have this kind of income. Because we're going to have this kind of income, we're going to do this, this, and that. We're going to hire these people. What should we be measuring there? We got to go back to the beginning. The success of those projects are paramount to the other 9 things. Well, it wasn't that many, but you understand. Everything's hinging on those. So those special projects can be a part of this. And they could be weighted 10%. Or has anybody been through a core conversion? Sorry, did Survive come out? That's the way I felt. I'm just speaking for me there. Okay. I won't go through another one. So if you're looking for somebody to guide you through that process, I'm not your guy. I'm out of it. That's as many as. Some of you have been through 2 core conversions. Yeah, I can tell. Yeah. 5?
Well, I've been doing this a long time.
Oh, there's only 4 cores now. Yeah, that's kind of a sad statement to say out loud too. There's not really that many, but there's more coming. It seems like there are some that are being developed now, which is good because it kind of got really consolidated, which makes the price go up, right? So interesting. Anything you can share with us? after 5 core conversions, like anything that we should or shouldn't do that you can just think right off the top of your head like might be helpful?
Like what you just said, I will never do that.
I agree. And you know, while we're on that topic, some of you, anybody planning a core conversion in the near future? So do you have stay bonuses on the docket? Do you have like where critical positions would get a bonus if all the things are met getting through that? Did anybody else do that, like stay bonuses? Okay, I find that to be interesting, and I did not know that as I went through, and some of the key people quit, which was not great. It was not awesome. So if you've got your key project manager doing the training and they're like, yeah, I'm kind of done. I don't want to do this anymore. You're like, well, you're really the person that's over this, so who do we get now? Let's hire the person that's actually with the core company. Maybe we can get them to do it for us.
I did ask for, our senior executive teams all made the decision, everything like that. And, I just said we need to make sure and have all our VP levels, but then I want next level, and then I want somebody even next level. So I just requested we at least have 3 from each group, which takes a lot away from everyday needs, and, we got a business to run and there's so much going on, but if one of those leaves, we gotta have, or both of them, so I just asked for more people to be involved. So.
That's great. Where were you in 2005 is what I want to know. Nobody was volunteering that information to me. They're like, let's see if he makes it. So those can be special projects. What else could be a special project? New lending platform, branch. Some of you are building new operations centers. Some of you are shuttering branches. So all those could be projects that could be considered in the review process. Financial targets, again, looking at an average peer group, I don't know how I feel about the peer group, honestly. And show of hands, peer group. You like it, love it, hate it? Do you use that? Yeah? Go ahead. I didn't know if you were going to say anything. Peer group, to me, it can be good, but if you're just grabbing the peer group off of one of the websites and getting data off that, I don't know. There's some volatility there. What if they're not going through a core conversion? What if their expense ratio is radically different? What if their profitable? What if their lending portfolio is radical? What if their area just had a huge layoff and people? So there's just a huge amount of volatility. So I do think that could be considered, but I would like to select my peer group, and I would like to do some extraordinary vetting of that peer group before I looked at my numbers to compare it to, because gosh, am I basing my pay on this? That's a lot to think about. So be careful when you say the word peer group. My CEO used to call it the mullet, right? So mullet are fish that have to jump up to get breath and then go back into the water. It's a lot of work for a mullet. He's from Texas, Virginia, you probably know. So anyway, so you have to come up with those goals. You have to think about what are important enough projects, and then you have to think about your financial targets. Should those targets stay the same all the time? I struggle with that because I've recently had a couple, and I do CEO reviews for a lot of places, and a couple recently have said, look, some of these things are windfalls and some of them are shortfalls. I shouldn't be I shouldn't be punished or profiting extraordinarily either way, so I'm going to come up with some targets that I think, and that person had been doing it for 20 years as a CEO. It's like, look, if we hit these targets, we're going to be fine. I'm not going to change it. This is it. I'm like, all right, well, if your board supports it, that's okay as long as it's not, a goal like I would have, like really low right down here, right? So those are interesting things to think about. But most of the time, probably 90% of the time, those goals are changing because of strategy. Interest rates change. Do we need the same targets? Probably not. But anyway, there's a way around it apparently. So looking at all this, we need to come up with a matrix. We need to meet with the board. We got to talk about this. We got to review this. We got to take a look at everything. We got to approve it and make sure the survey questions, make sure the tranches, right? We come up with those financial goals. What's the goal? What's the stretch goal? What does that look like? And then when we get those scores, what's that going to look like? We get everything approved all the way through and have a targeted payout date. Everything's completely transparent. Everybody feels good about this. We feel like we've got a great plan. All this is done timely, not 6 months into the year in advance. And then we get the scores where we get the assessment. And again, that laser, okay, maybe it doesn't work. All right. I see it on the wall, but not on the screen. So The board assessment, again, here it's 30%. There's no special projects on here, so the actual financials are 70%. We take those two scores, come up with the final total, and then we develop a matrix. And again, this is already scored out, but all of this matrix will be approved beforehand. Everybody agrees. It's not some, magic 8-ball dartboard kind of thing. It's stated. We have a comp philosophy. We have an approved matrix. We have an approved review. We have chart of the course. Let's go. It comes out. And what should this be based on? Well, we have the data. We can tell you what the actual payouts are. So you have your baseline. This is what everybody's getting. And then, oh, wow, you really crushed it. You're going to get better than that. Because it hurts when you lose any CEO. But it really hurts when you lose a great CEO. Think about all your football analogies, right? Losing a great coach. I'm not saying anything about Green Bay. I'm not saying anything about... There's a lot of places, though, that lost great coaches that are really struggling. They may never recover, Florida Gators. I could go on. I got a lot of teams I can throw in that bag. I can just pick on them because my brother-in-law played for them. So I think when we look at this, we have to think about what's going to enable us to attract and retain the best talent. If we have a great CEO, how can we make sure that great CEO, knowing that there are a ton of openings, and we just went through an acquisition, a merger, a core conversion, they've got that feather in their cap, they can do that. Somebody else that needs to know, to find somebody that's been through that forest, that's gotten them through that, you're going to have a premium price tag on that individual. They're going to take them and all that intellectual capital that your organization has, and they're going to pay a lot more. So how can we mitigate that? How can we guard against that? Well, come up with a plan, and it doesn't have to be this plan. It could be your plan. Get rid of the bias. Get rid of the bias. It's out there. I have it. We all have it. But we have to think about, for this industry, these CEOs, they're not making biscuits like I was, right? They're changing lives. They're changing businesses. Not for the short term, for the long term. They're making your communities thrive if they're doing their job right. Place that I have a bank and a credit union, a bank for the business, a credit union for some personal stuff. The place, that their big thing is they want to give back the most money they can. I know right now if I'm a bank CEO, I'm like, that's because they get the tax break. You're probably right. But $200 I got the past month because I had a checking, savings, made deposit, something like that. So that's their thing. What's your thing? If you're at a bank, you've got the best service, the best rates, the best products. If you're at a credit union, same thing. What is your thing? What are you doing? And how's that making a difference? It's making a huge difference. We had the hurricane. That same place deposited $50 in 130,000 people's accounts. Nobody had any power. Nobody had any cell phones for over 2 weeks. So $50 was pretty cool. When we couldn't get to it, maybe that was a trick. Unless you had a way to get out of town and get it. Should have probably not said that because it kind of took away from it. But anyway, it was a good feature. So you have your index, you have your incentive earned, and all of this can be backed up with good data. One cool thing is Jordan's here, and I lean on Jordan. He carries me a lot, which is a lot to carry, by the way. He can provide some amazing information, some amazing benchmarks using more than the 2 surveys that I was allowed to use and that we budgeted for. So this is what it is for this asset size, right? And you can come up with things that you can back it up with data. So by establishing these clear philosophies, these stated philosophies, fostering transparency, designing thoughtful compensation structures, navigating board dynamics impartially, and leveraging reliable data, that's huge. You can mitigate the risk and ensure fair and effective CEO compensation practices. The board works very hard. They're amazing. They're the superheroes of the organization. I mean, they do a lot, and we need to recognize that. Getting them involved, though, and getting them what they need to make the right decisions is paramount to the success of any CEO compensation program. What questions do you have? Yes, go ahead, Kat.
I noticed that in the review process, you didn't have a feedback loop from either the executive team or the employee base. Can you talk a little bit about that? How does the board know that they're not just getting a slick sales job? I mean, the numbers are important, but employee engagement and things are as well. I'm curious about that.
Great question. So sometimes they do want to have the CEO do a self-review, and sometimes they do a mid-year review and an end-of-year review where the CEO does their own review of themselves and they talk about how they're doing. Is that what you're referring to?
Well, self-review is one thing, but again, people got to that level because they're great at managing up, but I want to know what the employees are thinking, and you have to be careful, of course, but I really feel like the board needs a pulse on that. And if they're only asking the CEO, are they really getting the full picture?
Gotcha. Yeah, and our CEO would have us do an employee engagement survey as part of one of their objectives. So you could do that. There's a lot of funny memes. If you ever get a chance, look at some of those where they talk about employees filling out those surveys and, you know, you're going to get fired. They have a little musical jingle. Don't put what you really think. So there's probably some bias associated. That's the only caution that I put with any survey. You know, if I know, because that was the pushback that I got when we were doing the surveys. They're like, you know which one I did, don't you? I'm like, no, there's no way we can find out. There's only 2 people in my department. Yeah, we totally know who it is. Totally. But so you have to be careful. How can we structure this survey in such a way where it is anonymous and we really can't tell who it's coming from? So, but a great idea though. Let's get a beat on that. Who's doing feedback from yeah? Not as many. And the other, when we asked that question in the other room, I've had a lot of folks doing it. Go ahead, Virginia.
You asking, are we doing it for the CEO or are we getting
Employee
employee feedback?
feedback as an objective for the CEO review.
We find that either through other avenues, like you're saying, overall organizational matrix or goals that they have to attain, whether that be turnover, time to fill, whatever that is, as an indicator, but we don't have it specifically on this CEO review. Not that I would necessarily be opposed, but to Phil's point, it would be difficult to.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, at what point is it the right time to do those surveys too? Because I know in my role, I was a fix-it guy, so they would say, you know, we're going to send you over to South Carolina. No offense, South Carolina. It was just where I went, and they said either fix it or fire them all. So I could care less what the survey says because I had to fix it. They were unprofitable, they were failing, and everybody was going to lose their job in 6 months if we didn't fix it. So I think there's also appropriate timing of those surveys.
Right after profit share.
Yeah, exactly. The same day, like literally the check and the survey go out. Yeah. We're on to stuff here. You guys write that down. I think I'm picking up what you're laying down there. Good question though. Thanks for that. Other questions? This presentation has been brought to you by Olipop. Olipop is the, no, it's not. I feel like I'm promoting it though. Any other questions on anybody doing CEO reviews? Okay, all 2 people, that's good. I guess everybody else is kind of winging it, you know. I don't know. That's not my job. No. Is anybody doing it internally? A CEO review with their board internally? Some folks are doing it. Externally, third party doing it? Everybody pretty happy with the process? Anybody unhappy with the process? Huh, interesting. It's a lot of work. Other questions? I still have 8 minutes, 30 seconds, and 33 seconds and 22 hundredths of a second. Yes, Virginia.
I'm curious in your right, show that how many of you as HR individuals are intimately a part of this process? Like, do you intimately work with your CEO and the board to determine?
Yeah? How many of those hands that are up really like that you're intimately? Oh, you do? Okay, that's cool. I like it. I really didn't care for it too much because I wasn't a colonel, so I wasn't even a private. But the person I was working with was a colonel, and chain of command. Yeah, good stuff.
Pretty important, isn't it?
Why am I talking to this guy? You know, it's a kind of the vibe I got. What are you doing here? Good. Should we be involved? Should that be completely off of us? Does it make it awkward?
Does when you report to that CEO.
Yeah.
Ooh.
I was in the middle of it. Yeah. And reporting to the CEO.
We're in the process.
We have since in the last year pulled me out of it and they deal directly with whomever we may be utilizing for their compensation.
Yeah. It is an interesting scenario when we're managing that process and you report to that person. because you definitely want to put your thumb on that scale. You're like, got you a really good raise this year, boss man, boss lady. We got you covered. You're going to really like me this year. And then when it's not so good, you're going to be putting out some feelers. It's not me. It wasn't me. Go ahead, Virginia.
Does anybody else, what has been your experience or everybody else's experiences with new CEOs coming with an employment contract or establishing an employment contract for the CEO with the board and how this covers with it? I know Bates has done it for some time, but I didn't know in the credit union space or maybe this one for Bates, but what do you guys see with CEO contracts of employment?
Does everybody get that question? What are you seeing with CEO, new CEOs specifically, right? CEO employment contracts, provisions. Anybody involved in that process, or is it all done through, you're involved?
Yeah, but would you look at an employment attorney, the board is involved, I mean, it's a trifecta of information, but.
Isn't it a wonderful experience? So not a lot of folks are? Huh.
We do, we have contracts, so for the last 2 CEOs we have a new one coming in, so they, the board does work with our employment attorney and they do develop contracts. Yeah, I'm, again, have pulled myself out of the mix of that and work directly with the attorneys.
And I would say I'm probably more administrative in that function.
I am too.
Than I am, really making decisions, because I don't think it's my place to make that decision.
Right.
Our information. We work with Bill, Bill does our survey with the board, all that information goes to him. I don't see who makes what response, but we do the math together, and it's worked out really, really well. I think we've been doing that for about 8 years, 8, 9 years.
100%, yes, 9 years. So I'm not counting, but no, it's a great experience for me though, because you do a great job with it in getting me the information that I need. So BalancedComp also does CEO reviews. It is part of what we do. It's a bit of a elongated process though. It's a lot of, as you saw, there's a lot of moving parts. So it does take that burden though. If you're reporting to your CEO, you can outsource that. And we're not the only ones to do that. Find one that works for you. There's a lot of far more expensive ones than us, so I highly recommend. Look, did I say that out loud?
No.
You said to work with BalancedComp, at least our experience has been have an outside party. It's even come to our area, they'll look at questions on the survey. And so the question is not going to Phil and say, hey, what are you seeing as new questions in the market? What would you like to see there? Also, they'll reach out to Phil if they have a question or a Christie or whatever that would be. But they are ultra tumultuous with us with the past CEO where there wasn't a designated CEO review process. And the board came, the CEO retired, new CEO came in. The board treated her very differently than what they did the prior CEO and changed her review process. And it caused a lot of problems. And so we engaged with Phil and Christie to say, hey, we need a standardized process that this review is agreed upon before the year starts. That way there's no uncomfortable squirming when you come in and talk about your pay or the bonus, because the numbers are what they are. It makes it more fun. So whether you use BalancedComp or not, it's been very advantageous for us.
Thank you for that, Virginia. Free tacos tonight. Wait, we already had tacos. Sorry.
I think that's great because you have a very diverse board and they come from different industries and they think from their industry what it should be and you can't get them all on the same page, so I like that.
Well, and we share the CEO comp report that comes out, and so when I meet with them and I get all their scores, and I meet with the committee, and I talk to them, I go over with them what the new CEO report is and what it's saying, and we balance it up to what they thought, where it would be at the first of the year. And so really, I'm just administratively doing the function. I'm not, because they need to do that. That's not my place.
Yeah, really, really great points, and it makes me think back to that time though, when I first came in, and my preconceived notions about the process and how it should be, and the way it is, and what the board's role was, and how important their role was, and how hard their job was, because they had to act upon the information they were provided, which was errant, and so to try to get that process right and that educational level right, and then to try to get the measure the CEO performance, which is another daunting conversation, because for a lot of CEOs are like, hey, the interest rates it's pretty volatile. I don't want to commit to something that I can't. Well, that's kind of the deal, and so it becomes a big challenge. But when you get it stated and somebody else is managing it, it really takes the sting out of a lot of it. And it really helped me through the process. And then working with boards and CEOs for the past 11 years, I've seen a lot of things, and it's helped me understand that it's a very important process. It's paramount to the success of the organization. We've got to get this nailed down. Like I said, whether it's internally at your organization, with us, with somebody else, getting that process consistent and managed, stating those things, and then thinking about the impact of the CEO and the leadership. We got to keep these folks. We got some really good. You watched Flint's presentation. I mean, I'm nervous as heck after I go to Buc-ee's and get that job, how they're going to treat me. But I'm also excited about that pay. But I mean, when you think about the numbers and the stats and the complexity and the demand, I mean, we're in a pretty tough situation. I mean, we no longer, as employers, really have the upper hand. I don't think we've had it for a number of years. So who knows? Maybe employees are going to be like college football coach. Maybe there's going to be a name, image, and likeness. Hey, I'm Philippe Asselin. I'm kind of a big deal. You're going to have to pay me what I'm worth. So, I mean, are we heading in that direction? For certain skill sets, considering AI and leveraging it, and how those that are in the know are going to be light years ahead of everybody else. It's an interesting time to be alive. Well, the eggs are almost done. Any other questions? You guys have been a great group. I know this is a tough subject. It really, really is. But CEOs are kind of a big deal, and so are boards. So I'm glad we talked about it. All right? And that's not just because you're sitting in the front row with me. It might be because you're sitting in the front row with me. I feel like I'm going to get some referrals out of that one. No, I don't know. We have a new application coming out too that does this. But did I say that too? Yes, we do. But if you want to see this presentation, there's a lot of great data on it. I would use a lot of what Flint presented. I mean, that's some amazing information. And then, we've got some good information here too. If you need any help, if you're a client of ours, if you're not a client of ours, reach out to me, let me know. Maybe we can do some type of collaboration and have some board education sessions or something, or whatever, just maybe on the whole topic in general. Wow, man, appreciate it. Thanks, everybody. Remember to tip your bartenders.